I think the digital skilling and the digital platform as a means of skilling or education is inevitable. And it's not about choice, it's about adapting to the reality of life. I think this whole life transforming technology that we call internet, having arrived in the world sometimes in 1990s, has changed the way human civilization operates. And I think is most visible and most, I think, strongest presence is felt now when, because of the COVID scenario, we can't meet physically, but none of the ideas of human civilization about talking to each other, about contesting ideas, about, communicating, all of these have been possible because that technology is there as a backbone to us as of now. And I think, therefore, there is a greater realization that not only would this become very important for the future, and we all know that in future, 2 to 3 years from now, we would be meeting physically too. But the fact that there could be a clampdown at some point because of many reasons, and then you need to adapt your life accordingly. So, and how we have done it now and how we would be doing that in future is something which will occupy our minds in a very big way. So therefore, digital world is there to stay. And I think more and more putting a lot of effort in future. So talking specific about skilling, um, few things which occurs immediately is as we see this whole technology transformation occurring across the world, and you would notice that from 1990s to maybe the last 2 3 decades, the rate at which technology has changed has gone exponential, and therefore when you try to define a job, it's very difficult to stick to that job. It's not that industry 2.0, when you created a job and that job lasted for 30 years in the same format and the job description could remain the same. The job description changes, and therefore the skill set that you need to survive in that job changes very rapidly. And in the new world that we are entering, and whose manifestation we see the highest in the current times, I think the need for skilling, reskilling, upskilling as something which you will do lifelong is very, very critical. And therefore, the importance of skill itself as a whole. What we have found when we look at the interest of learners, we have eSkill India platform in which normally the traffic that we would observe uh, pre-COVID, we have seen a 700% increase during the COVID times. Shows the interest of people to keep learning, and the fact that we had created this really resulted in them making the best use of their time. There are more than 468 courses there. 60% of them are free of cost. Many of the courses you can access are from very well-known companies across the world, and therefore there are lots of things which you can actually learn there, from maybe simple things like mushroom farming to very complex things like blockchain technology. You could learn any of these going there. So therefore, I think having these kind of platforms and making them much more user-friendly is very, very critical. But when we come to, I think, talking about masses, one of the challenges which we feel and which I be concerned about is that we need a quick evaluation of our trainees to understand their profile in terms of being able to access online skilling. And we found almost 35% of them saying that they didn't really have smartphones to access learnings. And then we looked at the income quartiles within which people fall, and we found that the lowest income quartile in India earns 26,000 rupees per month or less. And it's this income quartile which will face a lot of difficulty, because to them, smartphone is a luxury. And therefore, and they also have concerns about data. And then further down, if it is very remote part, then there is the issue of connectivity, that are you really connected all the time? So these are challenges which are real, and we must be mindful in our effort to maybe enhance the capacity of digital world to access and change people's life. We should not forget the lowest income quartile and their capability and their ability to access all the materials that we create. So this is a very important challenge on which we need to be prepared. Secondly, we also had webinars with almost 3,000 trainers across India that are engaged in many of the training centers that we have, and many training partner who run training centers. And what we basically talked about digital skilling and their preparedness for that. They all seem to be excited, but there is a need for, I think, a different skill set for doing that, because I think the whole process by which you skill people through digital method will vary from sector to sector. And we have done an analysis to understand which sector is more amenable and which is not. So for example, if you look at media and entertainment, we find that everything, the theory, the practical and assessment, all three could actually be done completely online. But that's not the case with capital goods. It's going to be different when you're going to
Of
skill
course.
people on that. Yeah, so therefore we have to be mindful that how much are you going to put where. So in some cases, the theory part can be done maybe 60%, 70% by digital platform. The other will still require somebody to come and talk to you about it. So this is, I think, one part of the stuff which I wanted to talk. The second part which I wanted to touch was the connectivity to jobs, because this is very important. We skill people, but after skilling, you need to go and become an entrepreneur, or you need to get a job. I mean, this is what is like an outcome for any skilling program that occurs. So one of the recent initiatives that we have taken is creating what we call a skill management information system. So it's a platform that we have created taking private sector help. And the idea is that can we connect people who are looking for jobs, even the people who have migrated, looking for jobs with those who are giving jobs. And we have found, surprisingly, there are lots of jobs actually that for which people are approaching us. They're saying that, okay, I actually require 30,000 people quickly. And but there has been migration from that part of India, and therefore they are facing difficulty to run their business. The idea here would be that can we, like Honorable Prime Minister said, localize employment in the sense that there are artificial intelligence um, algorithms running behind which try to connect workers with that skills that is nearest in terms of location. So the idea would be that let's not get somebody to travel from Assam to Bangalore all the way. If there's somebody in Andhra Pradesh who is available, or maybe maybe within Karnataka. So therefore, trying to ensure that things are more local in terms of opportunity, because that's going to make things easier. We are also trying to see if we can go down to clusters, because we realize there are about 100 plus and minus few economic clusters within the country. And if we could focus on cluster-based skilling, then probably we can ensure that the job opportunities as well as entrepreneurship opportunity will rise in a big way. If we compare to a situation where we are skilling with the country as a whole in mind, and people might be traveling long distances to access the jobs. So these are few changes that we are trying to incorporate, realizing the challenges that COVID threw up, and also the fear that people will have about traveling in the next few years, and being too far away from their home would be a matter of concern for many. So these are few adaptations that we have done. I think when we look at skilling and how things will change, one thing which becomes clear is the fact that there will be more automation after this. Within the industry, there's going to be more automation. We should be prepared for that. But that doesn't mean that jobs will vanish. Actually, new types of jobs will emerge. So I'll give you one, two example, which comes to my mind. One is a recent discussion I had with Satya from Career Launchers. And he was talking about courses that he has developed, which is focused on data inputs that is sound-based. So what he's saying essentially is that a lot of internet that we operate through web browsers, in future, you would be talking, like you talk to Alexa at the moment. But this Alexa is like, I say, infancy of how you are going to manage internet through audio is going to be far much more sophisticated than that. And therefore, the whole new business and new jobs that's going to emerge is going to be in that direction. So new ways in which, the people who are going to benefit the most apparently are three language speakers. So English, obviously, because that's spoken by many, and so does Alexa. But second is Hindi and Tamil, because that's where demand seems to be highest, apparently. And therefore, these are two languages where probably the voice samples and then let's say packets are speaking the same word through different voices, and creating that artificial intelligence. Yes, the phonetics as a backbone, so that when somebody speaks, then it's able to capture that, yeah, this is what is being asked. So there's a lot of work which is happening on it. Apparently in India, it's already taken off in some places, but still in infancy. But that's the future, And second example I remember is about these driverless cars in California, which are driven by girls sitting in Bhubaneswar and 24 Parganas in West Bengal. Essentially, we think a driver might have lost jobs in California, but the data inputs that actually drives the driverless cars is actually made by these girls. sitting there looking at a picture of some street in California, tagging them in terms of what's the speed limit, where is the curve, where is the median of the road, and then sending it back to the cloud. And then someday some car passes there and it's actually converting her intelligence into machine intelligence. So that's how the world is changing. So it's the interconnectedness, new type of jobs emerging. The girls who are just class 12 pass, who never thought that from the outskirts of Bhubaneswar they would ever come to Bhubaneswar to actually do a work. They are very happy about the income that they get. So I do feel that there'll be new types of jobs emerging. For the immediate, there would be jobs that will emerge in things like healthcare for immediately, because of the needs for telemedicine, the fact that people are thinking that once you deliver a diagnostic, then how do you deliver medicine? So there would be need for drones. People are talking about using drones to supply medicines. So there are all kind of thought processes. Human beings are creative, and therefore new kind of jobs will emerge as we plan our way into this. So I foresee the changes in the jobs as we go forward, and more opportunity than less opportunity. There will be more opportunity, but I think a few things we have to be careful. And some of the things we know that, for example, robotics, artificial intelligence, blockchain. There are about 40 skills that we have identified from the IT world that will cross-cut all sectors, and therefore we have created a portal within NASSCOM that is actually done by NASSCOM and ITS Sector Skill Council, financed by MITI, and I think supported by some of the best in the world in terms of knowledge. But that actually provides you cross-cutting IT-based knowledge that could be applied to different sectors. So that's, I think, one aspect of it. But I think coming back to a few other things, one, I feel that we have to become a little more, we need to separate ourselves, because some questions are about people who are, from the low income bracket. And our skilling and our entire planning for skilling is very productivity centric. It has to become more human centric. And these are not things which compete with each other. There are areas where they collaborate. But it's important to think not just in terms of pure productivity increase. And we have found that in our cases, where we have skilled people get wages which is 15% higher than somebody unskilled and getting the same job. This is analytics we have done. If they get, usually we have found that unskilled person get 8,000 rupees per month. These people get about 9,000 plus per month. So essentially 15% differential, which implies that if he's giving 1,000 extra, if you apply a simple game theory, then probably he's making 2,000 extra. That's why he's willing to share at least 50% with the employee that he has hired. So I see the potential of labor I think out there. Going to future, I think in the new jobs, I think we were talking on human-centric productivity, human-centric versus productivity. I'll just get into the human-centric part because I consider this very, very close to my heart. On the human-centric part, I think it's very important to begin thinking that can we link skilling that are human-centric with entrepreneurship opportunity. So you create skills, but create entrepreneurial opportunity. And I'm talking of not big entrepreneur. I'm talking of nano entrepreneur, people who are 75,000 rupee to 1 lakh rupee kind of loans that they need, which the banks are not willing to give them. But they would be in villages, they will be in rural India, and they are the ones who will form the backbone of India's economy if we let them be within their local area. Otherwise, many of them actually go to the urban area and distort the labor market. So effectively, what happens? They are willing to come very, very cheap. So you'll find private sector actually engaging labor at a very, very cheap cost. And that happens because of this migration. If we can stop that by creating entrepreneurial opportunity in rural India and ensuring that labor market in the urban becomes more fair to the labor and gives them the right wages which they deserve. So at the moment, I actually often get a request from companies saying that they're willing to give joining bonus if they were laborers willing to join them at this point of time. And I've heard about joining bonus in white collar, never heard about it in blue collar. So that shows, the demand which is existing when labor can actually, manage themselves better. So good opportunity for us. I mean, I can see the negative side of COVID, but if we can actually manage our labor in a very positive way, then this is good opportunity for labor in a big way. So this human-centric approach, therefore, I wanted to touch on that before I conclude. Thanks. Talking of numbers, I think if you look at the number of people in average we skill per month, in NSTC is averaging about 3.5 lakhs per month approximately. And during that time, we would get about 20,000 people into the website, eSkill India platform that we had. Now we have about 1.5. So therefore, quantum jump in that sense. I think more importantly, if you look at the challenge that we have, is much more. So we have the RPL, recognition of prior learning challenge, which is what we can address by private sector. It runs into crores. It'll be about we in India, if you want to, people who are already skilled but not recognized for their prior learning. If you want to raise them out, it'll be almost 30 crore approximately, spread across many sectors.
It's a very big
and
number.
Therefore, and this can be accessed only through the private sector. And this requires the private sector's involvement in a very deep way because they're already working. So therefore, government has actually created the facility for the private sector to take the lead on that and then recognize for prior learning through the supervisors, those and certify those workers already there. So there are a lot of private sectors are doing it, but it needs to be massed up in a much bigger scale than what is today. And then in addition, we have almost 1 crore joining the workforce every year. So therefore, these are the youngsters who join the workforce every year.
Or possibly digitally.
So that's the challenge. So I think we need to scale up. Even the 3.5 that we achieve is entirely because of private sector centers that we have established. There would be another 3.5 through government institution every year, every month at the moment. So in some sense, I think we require more of private sector coming in to support on the skilling agenda.